Hello and welcome back to the Joe and Toby Talk podcast, where we talk a wide range of topics from sport to film, TV, music, all of that good stuff. And today we are continuing our journey through the Ashes of 2023 in England, and I'm happy to say that the Ashes are still going, Toby, because there was a distinct possibility and a very likely possibility, or so we thought, that the Ashes would be over the next time we were talking on a podcast. But that's not the case. I'm sure we'll get into that. But I'm delighted to be joined by Toby, and I know he's very, very happy that England managed to get over the line, and he's very, very happy that Daniel Ricciardo's back on the grid. Isn't that the case?
Well, that's two different topics entirely, but I suppose happy, yes, why not? Very happy about both. But of course, we are here to provide a balanced argument.
Yes.
Where it could have all gone wrong for England,
yeah.
But we'll get into that.
Absolutely, and you know, we've got 2 more test matches. It could all be short-lived, this relive hope, I suppose. We'll see. But should we go all the way back to, was it Thursday when the test started? But obviously the day before that, we had the squad announcement, and we'd theorised about who we'd like to see in there. I think we'd both said Jimmy Anderson would be rested. We thought Josh Tongue would have probably stayed in. And we thought Mark Wood or Chris Woakes is going to come in for Anderson. I think we said possibly Moeen Ali would get selected. I don't think either of us would have selected Moeen Ali, but he did come in the end instead of Dan Lawrence, and of course Harry Brook was moved up to number 3. Johnny Bairstow moved up to number 5, and then we had Moeen Ali at 7. Then Chris Woakes and Mark Wood came in for Josh Tongue, which I think was harsh. We'll talk about that in a minute, but you know, of course, a very different lineup that was named for this third test match. We knew it would be because of the quick turnaround and obviously some of the older legs in the squad, and obviously Ollie Pope's injury as well. But what were your initial reactions to seeing that squad? Were you optimistic of a good performance?
Well, I know you would. You said, well, that's 3-0.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's start with the positives. I thought that Wood and Woakes coming in was a big positive, because we spoke last time out about how the tail was terribly long for England in that previous test with Tongue, Broad, Anderson and Robinson, and that was a very significant tail. The tail of the tail this time is the selection of those 2 players won the test match for England. Most definitely.
And I think you were right. I think you said last time those 2 will come in and score you 20, 30 runs. And
maybe not in 8 balls. But...
Yeah, but that's exactly what happened. I mean, what we need is access to Toby's crystal ball to find out what's going to happen. That was a bob-on prediction. I don't think you'll ever get the credit from the 60 people that watch this podcast, but you know, that was a good call that you made.
First time for everything, because normally I jinx people. See Carlos Sainz when I predicted him to win the championship.
Well, yeah, he's still suffering from that.
Yeah,
so.
Sorry, Carlos. Sorry.
Yeah,
but Mark Wood's strike rate, first innings 300, second innings 200, and got 40 odd runs for his trouble.
I think I seen something that he'd scored, or he had the highest ever strike rate from that amount of deliveries in a test match. So it was something like 250 was his strike rate.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a record for the amount of balls that he faced. So that's great for Mark Wood. I mean, he obviously came in, got a fifer in the first innings. Chris Woakes was brilliant as well with the ball, particularly in that second innings. And you know, I think perhaps having that little bit of sharpness, which is weird because both of them have had their injury troubles, but they just look so much sharper, so much fresher than Anderson has, and particularly Ollie Robinson. And, Ollie was pretty anonymous this test. Of course, he went off injured after 11 overs in that first innings, and I think that'll be the last we see of him in this series, if I'm honest with you. Obviously, it was up to Broadwalks and Wood to pick that up, because Stokes didn't bowl at all in this test match, which I think was a little bit of a surprise for me. He has been, but I suppose we didn't need him. That we were bowling quite well. We didn't need Stokes this time, and that's great to see. But I think Ollie Robinson's probably out for the rest of the series now in terms of selection. Anyway, maybe not fitness wise, but. I thought it was great seeing Mark Wood bowl. He was bowling at 97 mile an hour. It was really intimidating, and that's such a far cry from the 81 mile an hour that Ollie and 72 mile an hour that Ben Stokes was bowling in the first couple of test matches. And it just makes you think, wow, if we had that in the first two test matches, maybe we'd be sat here saying England have won it already.
Well, could be, should be, all that.
Yeah.
But no, I think that the one thing to come out of it is that Josh Tongue should get his place back in the next test, because I think he was unlucky to miss out. And the only positive for Ollie Robinson is he's still in the 14-man squad. I think, yes, he's an unchanged lineup. So with it being such a tight squad, I think there's probably an air of hope that he could be selected, or else I just don't think there would be much point, but we'll see. But I don't think he'll, as you say, I don't think he'll get selected for this next test match. So Josh Tongue wasn't in the squad, but I should say, particularly in that first innings, Wood, Pfeiffer, Wokes, 3 wickets. So 8 of the 10 wickets from those guys. Before we come on to the other bowler that was selected, obviously because Ollie Pope was injured, somebody had to go up to number 3. There was rumours about it being Joe Root. I wasn't in favour of that particularly with how everybody, I guess, but with how the openers play. And in fairness, however the openers play, you're always susceptible to being 1 wicket down after an over, and that puts such an amount of pressure on Joe Root, particularly as England's best asset, and I think that was the wrong move if they were to put him at 3. That then leaves the question of who do you put at number 3? And that unlucky person, that unlucky scapegoat, was Harry Brook, albeit for 1 innings. And I think it's not a long-term solution because it's only for 3 test matches, but I think if they do persist with Brook at 3, which is quite possible, without the innings in his second innings, it could have potentially cost his England place, I think, because he's not a number 3 at all. He's very smash and grab, not that there's anything wrong with that, particularly as a number sort of 6 or 7 middle order. That's the perfect way to play down there. But number 3, it doesn't work, and that was probably one of the reasons why we were at 22 for 2 in the first innings. Not blaming Brook, because he was, as I say, effectively a scapegoat, really, ending up there because there was nobody else to put there. You can't put Root there, you can't put Bairstow or Stokes. They're 3 massively valuable batsmen. We did it in the second innings. You can't really put Moeen Ali there. So it's a difficulty of who you put, and you go to Chris Wokes.
I think quite honestly, I think Ben Stokes actually, because other than that performance at Lords, and obviously the way he played in the first innings at Headingley. Other than that, he's been playing pretty reserved and, not really... Yes. I mean, we talked about how perhaps the only guy that wasn't buying into the baseball was Ben Stokes himself. And, I think if he bats at 3, I think that would work. He's very technically sound. I think he could come in and can also come in at 3 if we're 110 for 1 and be able to push the game on. So I think it's actually the perfect temporary solution, especially if he's not bowling. If all he's doing is batting, then bat him at 3. He's one of our best batsmen, so get him in there. Obviously, you've still got Root at 4, Brook at 5, then Bairstow presumably at 6, and then see where it goes from there.
That's probably the best case, to be honest. But
Yeah.
again, I do worry about putting our two best players at 3 and 4. But as I said, it's the tricky thing that somebody's got to go at 3 without Ollie Pope there. So Stokes might not be a bad shout, but unlike my prediction about Mark Wood, I don't think it's going to come true. I think they're going to keep Brook at 3.
You want Mark Wood at 3?
Yeah. Let's have Mark Wood at 3. Why not? At least he'd get runs, albeit he might be out by 4 overs in. But that's a bit like Ben Duckett. But we'll talk about that a bit later.
I just don't get England's philosophy of, we're over a week away from the next Test match, and they've already announced the squad. It's just a bit odd for me. There's a few players that I think are struggling for form. Your likes of Ollie Robinson, your likes of Ali, your likes of Bairstow. Give them a week to sweat it out a little bit. Get into the nets and get practice and get some form back into themselves, and then you can think about bringing out the squad in a week or so, once you've got a better idea of what's happening there. That's just my opinion with it, I think. But
I don't disagree with that. No.
There's just absolutely no need for them to announce it a week in advance. I really don't understand that, if I'm honest. But, it is what it is. Hopefully we'll be able to go forward. But it was a bit of a low-scoring test match, wasn't it? I mean, the first one to finish in 4 days and quite comfortably within that. Obviously, there was weather as well. It could have quite easily been a 3-day test match, I think, had we had all the overs. It was a bit of a bizarre one, really. Ben Stokes, the only England player to turn up in the first innings, but as you say, crucial runs from the likes of Wokes and Mark Wood, even Mordelli chipping in with 21 there as well. But it was finely poised after the first innings. There was only 26 runs between the sides, and we go into that second innings and, well, Broad versus Warner again, and it's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, it was an odd test match, and I have to say, Australia were really pushed up by Mitchell Marsh, which was incredible, really, because obviously it was his first appearance at the Ashes, and the opening order didn't do all that well. Smith out for 22, Labuschagne 21. The opening order, the 4 of them between them scored the best part of about 60 runs.
Yeah.
And obviously Head got 39. The tail of Australia got next to nothing. And Mitchell Marsh was the one that saved them. They went from 85 for 4 to 240 for 5. Or else I think Australia could have quite easily been out for 150.
Yeah.
So he saved them really in that first innings. But
I think that was
all over fairly early on, wasn't it? And that that just changed the complexity of the test match altogether. For England to then go and play an innings of calmness and tranquility, but alas, that's not quite the case with England with 22 for 2 after 5 overs. But
I think what it proved actually, that first innings, was Australia aren't playing incredibly well. They're not playing unbeatable cricket, and ultimately, I think they were found out a little bit in this test match, actually, that if you bowl well at them, they're beatable.
It's always the analogy with football, isn't it? When the underdog wins, if the favourites were rubbish. But I'm never such a fan of that. I know exactly what you're saying, but I think definitely the point about bowling well, I just think they couldn't cope with Mark Wood. Because of, as you say, the pedestrian pace beforehand. This bloke comes in at 95, 96 miles an hour, clean bowls Usman Khawaja, and the rest of them go, okay, we're on for something different here. It's that range of bowling that I think has really cost England, because I think, was it the last test where bowling in the first innings was just so predictable? Yeah. And Mark Wood just brought a bit of unpredictability about it, and obviously took the key wicket of Khawaja and then mopped up the tail with, I think, possibly 4 of the last 5 wickets or something like that. But yeah, I think, as I say, Mark Wood in particular, and obviously with his heroics with the bat, adding 41 runs, I think you'd probably have to have him down as possibly England's man of the match. I think he was excellent.
I'm not sure who did win man of the match, but
I can find out.
You can find out for us. But yeah, you know, obviously we went into the final day or days thinking England have got 251 to win. And compared to what we've been chasing recently, that was achievable. And the main message was, right, we need to have a calm start to the innings. And I think we got that, you know, a 42 opening stand from the openers was a little bit further along the line than what we've been used to. So that was really key. But then, as we've alluded to before, Moeen Ali comes out at number 3. And what were your emotions when Moeen Ali strolls out?
Well, I have to confess, I went to watch the start of that Saturday rain-affected day, and went to watch it, and then it was wet and all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. And then I sat and watched, ironically, the last ball of the Australia innings where Travis Head got out, and then England had got 20 minutes to bat, and I thought, just stay there. I know it's not in you. No, it's not in the mantra, but just stay there, defend, be calm, stay there. And sure enough, first ball, Crawley swings it, and then Duckett hits about 5 edges in the space of 5 overs. We score 30 in that 5-over period. Now, as much as it worried me to death, it was actually quite positive because it needed us with only about 220 odd to get in 2 days, which, if they put their mind to it, I thought, God, this is going to be easy, to be fair. Obviously, you know, there were some very low scores, but
it's a tough one, isn't it? Because actually, Australia scored 263 in the first innings. We scored 237. Australia then 224. So 251 was above par, really, in terms of the picture of the match, if you like.
It was, but England had got the nous, possibly, to know that they had got plenty of time to get this.
Mm-hmm.
But you just felt that on the Sunday morning that it was going to be all over on that day, come what may. The whole entertainment beats winning mantra, which I've talked about before, I don't particularly agree with. But the Moeen Ali decision, well, I sat at the table and thought, bring Wokes out now. Don't bring Brook. Bring Wokes. And they brought Ali out. Well, he was bowled clean bowl for 5, so I think that's evidence as anything that it didn't really work. But you know what? I feel like if it was they had brought Brook out and he was out for 5, panic stations might have started a little bit more. Yeah. There wasn't really any.
It was a bit like a night watchman, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah. There wasn't any expectation of Moeen Ali, so when he was out for 5, it was a bit of an alarm, but not massively. And I was glad they then brought Brute out rather than just putting Brook down one place. But obviously, again, we were looking a bit sick with Stokes getting out 161 for 5, and we needed another 90 odd for Bairstow, Brook, and the tail to get. Yeah. And although I thought that we've got a chance again, Wokes and Wood the match, because if that would have been Tongan Anderson or Tongan Broad, they wouldn't have got the 20 odd runs that were needed to win it. I don't think. I think it would have been too much of a
I think Broad might have, but you're right in what you say is it would have been a very long tail. It would have been more pressure. I think we felt a bit more relaxed having Wokes and Wood there. But
Harry Brook continues his great series, didn't he? Yeah, it's 75, which was another massive contributor, obviously, in winning England a Test match. Okay, Crawley again got off to a start with a 44 and then got out. He's so good at making these starts, but I'm yet to see a real solid innings from Crawley.
I've seen a stat, actually. Lots of people have been having a go at Crawley, but actually he only scored 1 run less than Harry Brook in that Test match, if you want to look at it that way. So it's an interesting one with Crawley. I think he's the best we've got, and I think for what we're wanting, people are looking at it as they want him to score centuries because he's an opener, but I don't think that's why he's playing for us. I don't think that's his role.
I'm by no means drop the guy. But it would be nice to see him go and, maybe make a 50 when he was so close, just for the stature of it, I guess, and just to get us to have a bit of a better start, because Bucket is very much gung-ho, can't leave anything, and that is a bit of a problem, I think, that he literally can't leave anything. It's something like he's left 8 balls in his test career. It's absolutely bonkers. But he just plays at things that, okay, 9 times out of 10 might go flying over the slips, but if he gets out, you have to say, well, he could have quite easily left that one. So, as an opening bat, not sure what to think about that, but it's a whole different philosophy, I guess, which we spoke about before. So, yeah, a bit disappointed about Crawley, but 44, as you say, Duckett 23, so 67 again between the two openers, which isn't too shabby at all, really, there. Obviously, Root can't do it all in a test match. He had a very quiet test match, but we can't expect Root to do it all the time. So other people have got to step up, and alas it was Harry Brook with his 75, and then Chris Wokes with 32, and Wood with the crucial 16 to go and win the match. But we did it in 50 overs, just over 5 and over. I didn't think we'd do it, but it does give us some hope for the next match. The only thing I worry about, which is a great point, that I can't remember who made it. Who was the Australian who made the dig about Bazball?
Glenn McGrath
last week. I think it might have been McGrath, possibly, or I might be misquoting this as somebody else. But he made a great point that Bazball is very much a one-day international strategy, because you can go and win matches like that innings there. Get 254 in 50 overs, which obviously is a very subpar one-day international score these days. But if you are playing for short-term, in effect, that wins the game. But longer term, whether it works or not, I don't know. What I'm trying to say in principle is that I think that the low scores of this test match really helped England. Because if Australia would have gone and put 400 on in the first innings, with England's aggression, I know they've done it earlier in the series, but would England possibly have made it to 400? It's that risk factor. Then if they'd have been out for 300, they were 100 behind. I think that the way this test match was played and the low scores did play into England's hands. So I'd be interested to see if that's similar next time out, because it was just very much a test match that was, ironically, very, very tight in scoring, and that's just the way it went. I don't think it was particularly enforced by either side. I don't think there was that about it, but whether it's a one-off that helped England, I'm not sure, but let's take the positives. I think that there wasn't too much that England got wrong. There's always something you can see that England have got wrong, but to go and win against the Test champions, the World Test champions, and win at a fair rate, nothing wrong with the win, you can't argue with that. So I think going into the 4th test at Old Trafford, obviously the pressure's going to be on both sides, particularly for England, knowing that, again, it's still the same thing, that they've got to go and win the next two test matches. So it will be interesting, but I think that week's break will be quite nice. But as you say, I'm a little bit puzzled why they've already selected the squad. It just seems like maybe, I don't know, too much confidence. We've won a game now, we'll stick with the side, like you do on Football Manager. You've won a game, you stick with the tactic, it's going to win all the time. But in actual fact, whether that happens or not, I'm not sure. But the other question is there anybody better? And that's the whole debate we've had for years about this opening partnership, and we probably finally got to the realisation that we've tried everybody out there, and those two are indeed the best we're going to get. So for a test side, obviously we're missing a couple of key players because of injury, mostly Ollie Pope at number 3 now. But I think, as I say, with Wokes and Wood, we've eliminated that big problem of the tail, which is really positive. There's obviously another problem with Brook at 3, but the way we were at the start of the series, again, Jimmy's not been his best. We can talk about that probably after the next test match, whether he comes back for the final test match. Obviously, he could be in the team for this test match, but I do doubt it after England's win at Headingley. Yeah,
okay.
I think they'll keep him out again at this one.
No, I think he'll replace Robinson 100%. I'd bet a fair amount of money on that.
I hope not. because I think that could possibly be a turning point in the match. Because
But Robinson did nothing, so
no, Robinson did nothing at all. But if
I just think Anderson on his home pitch after a week's rest, I just cannot see how Anderson doesn't get selected. Personally,
yeah, but you said Anderson would do well at Lords.
Well, I did, yeah, I agreed, yeah, absolutely.
There's nothing more than I'd love to see Jimmy get a fifer, but I genuinely think that there's something telling me that it's over for him now, and we might, as much as the romance of it all tells us not to, I think I don't know, it might be time to move on. I think particularly for Josh Tongue, who had a really good test match, it would be so unfair not to pick him. But I guess you could be right. Just bloody drop Ali then if you're going to bring.
I'm more. I mean, there's a couple of talking points because you know it's great we won, but I agree with you. I think we only won because Australia didn't score many runs, and that was because of good bowling from us, to be fair. But we didn't really go above and beyond in this match. Certainly with our batting, I think that was an issue. And there's two big issues for me at the moment that need to be resolved, and I don't think will be resolved, and that's Johnny Bairstow and Moeen Ali. I'll start with Ali because you know my opinions on him. I don't think he should have been recalled anyway. I don't think he's ever been good enough, really. And he certainly isn't good enough now with bat or ball. He got 2 wickets in the match. That's not good enough, really. Anderson got 2 wickets in the last match, and we were saying that wasn't good enough. So, and supposedly he gives us something with a bat, but he scored 26 runs. That's less than Wood. That's less than Wokes, of course. It's a question of who else is there to take over Ali's role. But I think, as we've both said, Joe Root does a perfectly good job spinning. So let's get another batsman in there. And that brings me on to my next point with Johnny Bairstow. Now, it's been well documented he's had a horrible series with the gloves. His wicket keeping has not been good enough for this level of opponent where every chance counts. Yeah. And he's not supplementing that with anything in terms of runs. It was a very poor match for Johnny Bairstow with the bat. Scored 17 runs in total, and it's pretty weak. So why haven't we thought about bringing Ben Foakes in for Test match number 4? That's not really anything. He's a much more solid option with the gloves, and you're not losing anything with the bat. It just screams stubbornness from England, and I think it's the same with Moeen Ali as well. And I think both will probably play it. Well, Bairstow will definitely play at Old Trafford. Moeen Ali will probably play at Old Trafford, and I just think that's the wrong call for me, because those are 2 players that have really underperformed. And there are better options out there. Whether you bring in Anderson for Ali, as you suggested, and you bring in Tong for Robinson, you have your sort of 5 seamers, I guess, and then you've got Joe Root as your spin option. You could bring Foakes in for Bairstow. There's lots of ways around it. It's not as if we're forced into having these 2. It's a bit like
Australia have got the same spin problem, haven't they? Anyway, because Nathan Lyon's out. I don't think Todd Murphy sets the world alight.
I mean, they didn't trust him.
From a Nathan Lyon perspective,
yeah. I just think England are missing a trick, really. I think you can keep Bairstow by all means. That's fine. But I think he would actually do better if he was just there as a batsman. A little bit like the Joe Root argument, I suppose, and the captaincy, and give him a little bit more time to focus on his batting. You can get him at 3 if you want, and just purely focusing on that. Ben Foakes comes in, and sorts out the glove situation. I just don't understand it, and I was hoping, Toby, that you would have some pearl of wisdom as to why they're doing this.
No pearl of wisdom. I think that the Moeen Ali thing is none other than just pure loyalty. They've picked him, so want to keep picking him. And to say we've got a spinner in the team, tick, because we don't want Joe Root to have to take on the spin role and all the rest of it. But I think Bairstow in particular, for a number 5, isn't performing as well as he should. That's clear. And I've said this before, particularly with Jimmy, Broad, Bairstow, Stokes and Root. England are a team in transition, and some of this loyalty towards some of the old guard could end up costing England. You saw evidently in that Test match, I'll keep banging on about it, how Mark Wood, and he was named player of the match by the way, I did check, how bringing in Mark Wood potentially won England the Test match. If you drop Moeen Ali and bring another batsman in, maybe if you kept Bairstow and brought Ben Foakes in and had Foakes as wicket keeper, I would bet your bottom dollar that Foakes would probably contribute 30, 40 more runs than Ali as a minimum, and we would probably not lose 10 or 20 runs through fumbles in behind the bat.
Drop catches, there's, he's dropped 4 or 5 in the series, and I think ultimately that has been the difference between the two sides, has been England have dropped, and yes, Australia have dropped their fair share of catches as well, but England have dropped more easy ones, I think, is fair to say. And I completely agree with you. Even if Foakes comes in and scores no runs, it's not making any difference, but it's giving you a little bit more security with the gloves, and I think that and it stops people talking about it. Everybody has been saying, "Oh, Bairstow's not good enough with the gloves," blah blah blah. I mean, every wicketkeeper gives away some byes, every wicketkeeper drops some catches, but lots of people are going at Johnny Bairstow, and that's putting unnecessary pressure on him. There's the whole thing with the Alex Carey dismissal with Bairstow as well. I just think there's a lot of baggage there at the minute, and I think to protect him more than anything, he needs to be brought out of the firing line a bit. Clearly, he wasn't over it in this Test match, and I think it showed. 17 runs just isn't good enough for somebody of Bairstow's ability and potential in this England squad. And I think coming back after a long injury, and he's not at his expected level, much like Anderson wasn't at his expected level, so he's had to sit out a match, and hopefully that means that Anderson will come back at Old Trafford and be back somewhere near his best, because he's spent 2 weeks practicing and 2 weeks getting ready for it, and I think something similar needs to happen for Bairstow. But hey, it's all woulda, shoulda, coulda. It is what it is. Bairstow is going to be playing in the 4th Test match, so I think we're at the point in the podcast where I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball, Toby, and first tell us your 11 for the Old Trafford Test match, and then what do you think the outcome of that 4th Test match is going to be?
Is that the 11 I would pick, or the 11 that I think?
The 11 that you think will play.
Okay, well that's quite easy. I'm going to go with the same lineup as this Test match, with the exception of Ollie Robinson, who will be replaced by Josh Tongue.
Okay.
That's who will play. The outcome of the match. Oh, England is so unpredictable. It's either going to be Australia win by an innings or England win by 2 wickets. It's that sort of game.
What did you predict? You said England to win by a certain number of wickets in the last podcast.
That was 4. I was nearly there, I think.
You said win by 4 wickets.
Yeah, because I was quite excited. I'm sure it was, because I think we were 6 down and I got Or was that? I can't remember. No, was that the previous Test match? No, that was the previous.
I will
test
check
match
it out while you're telling us what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I think that 4 wickets must have been the previous Test, which we lost. I am going to go. See, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to have to. I'm going to go for an Australia win.
How?
I would love to see it go down to the Oval, but something's just telling me it won't. That the way that Test match was played was a bonus for England, and how it will go in Old Trafford won't quite be the same. And it's difficult to know as well because we're quite a while out with the weather, because that could make an impact, and it's not the best weather over here at the moment this week, which can obviously make an impact on the match as it did at the weekend just gone. But I'm going to go with Australia to win. Just a crystal ball game. Australia to win by 4 wickets.
Australia to win by 4 wickets. There you go.
Yeah.
You predicted last time out England would win by 25 runs, is what you said. So
well, obviously we were chasing, but
yeah,
not in the face of it that far off. If you get what I mean.
Yeah, I think had Australia had another 25 runs, maybe we wouldn't have made it, but that's an interesting one. For my 11, I'm going to back Anderson to be back in instead of Robinson. I think Tongue will miss out again. And I do think they'll stick with Moeen Ali. As much as I disagree with it, I think they will stick with him. And I think they'll probably bat him at 3. I hope they bat Stokes at 3, but I think they'll probably stick with Ali there for the rest of the series. So, yeah. And I think Anderson will do all right. He won't be back to his best, but I think he'll contribute. It's much like Stuart Broad was pretty quiet in this match, but still came out of it with 5-6 wickets. So, pretty crazy, really. But I'm predicting an England win. I think now they've got a bit of momentum behind them. I think they'll go out there and win by 6 wickets.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, and I think that would be an awesome finale. It's a long, long time since we've had teams level going into the final Test match. So I think that would be really good for not only the series but the sport. You know, the fact we've had 3 very close Test matches, I think, is testament to this baseball, and whether you like it or not, it does create good matches. Somehow it doesn't create Australia winning by an innings, but it just seems to work. And hopefully England will get out on top. I think the weather's going to play a big part. Actually, I think it's going to be pretty dreary, and perhaps that could mean we don't get a result, and that would be a real shame.
It would
for the series if that happened. But now it'll be interesting to find out. Let us know your predictions down below in the comment section as well. We've certainly enjoyed the Ashes, and I hope everybody else has at home as well. And of course, there's a lot of cricket coming up over the next 12 months. We've got the 50 over World Cup happening again next year, Toby, in the West Indies. That'll be an interesting one. Funnily enough, that's my first ever memory of watching cricket, is the 2007 World Cup in the West Indies. So that'll be a nice full circle moment, I suppose. But yeah, we'll obviously be keeping you in the loop about all of that as well, and giving some awful predictions for the 50 over World Cup, because if we're screwed with the Test team of knowing who on earth they all are, when we get to the one day side, we're not going to have a chance, Toby, are we? So
no.
Yeah, but we like to make it sound like we know what we're talking about. Just a quick thing before we go. I just want to get your thoughts on camera so I can bring you back to this about the other big story of today.
Well, hang on. What's this going to be? Because I don't want to be brought on edge.
Yes.
Who's the BBC presenter?
Not that one. Not that one. Yet. You can give us your predictions for that as well, but I am not being held responsible for whatever comes out of your mouth. No, of course I'm talking about Formula One and the return of the honey badger. I know it was quite a shock, actually. I didn't expect it to come quite this soon. I knew really it was going to happen at some point or other. Certainly De Vries going, but Daniel Ricciardo's back. What do you think about all of that? I know you're not a fan really of the old guard getting another chance in Formula One, other than Fernando Alonso, of course.
Not so much that, actually. The infuriation comes with somebody as good as Daniel Ricciardo riding round at the bottom of the grid. I think that's the worst part of it all, because I think even if Hamilton or Verstappen jumped in that Alpha Tauri, I don't think they could make it go all that quick, personally. It seems that we've got... Well, before this weekend just gone, we did have 4 distinct sets of teams, which was obviously Red Bull, the upper tier of everybody else, the middle tier of everybody else, and the lower tier, which was Alfa Romeo, Alpha Tauri, and Haas. So, the only way that I think Daniel Ricciardo has convinced himself to go there is that he thinks there's a Red Bull seat on the line for next year. That's my only rationale for that, because why wouldn't he have gone at the start of the season? And then on the other side of this, there's a Dutch driver who's waited a long time for his chance in F1, and although hasn't set the world alight, hasn't been a Nicholas Latifi or a Nikita Mazepin that
or a
had
Yuji
much more of a chance. Well, yeah, that's another level. But I think that it's a crying shame that I don't really think they wanted him there in the first place. There was very early talk of De Vries getting replaced.
I just don't get why he was picked, really. It was an odd one. I mean, you say he waited a long time for his chance. I don't think he probably ever expected to get a chance in Formula One. So, he's had 11 more races than I think he ever thought he would have. Obviously, the highlight being Monza last year. For Williams stepping in for Albon, I actually think that shows maybe that Williams car isn't quite as bad as what everybody makes out. So, yeah,
I mean, he could be quite pleased with the decision, because personally, I know although this sounds ridiculous, I'd rather be battling for a Formula E title than battling for 15th in F1.
Yeah, no, I think you're completely right. And at the end of the day, his career was not going to go anywhere. Unless he went in there and absolutely blew Tsunoda away and was getting points left, right, and centre. He's not going to go anywhere other than maybe a sideways step to Haas, which, that's not going to happen, really. Alfa Romeo, as you've said, if Bottas was to go, maybe that's a place he could see himself. But other than that, there's not really any teams that are going to entertain Nick De Vries. Whereas Daniel Ricciardo, on the other hand, I think could have had the Williams seat. He could have had the AlphaTauri seat, as you said. He could have had the Haas seat, probably. Should he have wanted it? I seen somebody on Twitter before saying he could have had the McLaren seat had he turned down the big buyout offer of his contract. I think ultimately Daniel's heart was away from F1 for this season anyway. But 100% agree with you. Checo Perez, don't know what's happened to him. He started this season very, very well. I think he's been a little bit unlucky in qualifying here and there. But ultimately, you've got to put the lap in, and he's not been able to do that consistently this season. I think he had 6 out of 10 races this season. He's gone out before Q3. That's not really on. And that's ultimately why he's so far behind in the title battle. I think people overlook that a little bit with Verstappen being 99 points ahead.
99 points, yeah. And we've had, 10 races?
There was a graphic of the last 10 seasons, and, McLaren, Verstappen is, massively ahead of where anybody else was. I think the next biggest score was Hamilton being 23 ahead of Bottas or something like that. But I think people have overlooked that a little bit, because ultimately Perez has been damage limitation mode in 6 of the 10 Grand Prix this year, won 2 of them. So it's a little bit skewed towards Verstappen in that sense. But I guess from Red Bull's point of view, they kind of don't need a second driver that will be on Verstappen's level, and they know that. At the moment, where their car is quick, where I think it could get interesting is if by the end of the season we do have 3 or 4 teams in the mix again. I think Mercedes will be there. We've seen their development. They're looking, as much as Hamilton and Russell might moan, they're pretty much on the podium every race now. McLaren look good, but maybe it's a one-hit wonder. Ferrari are up and down, but you would imagine those...
The down part of Ferrari is the bloody strategy.
Yeah. And obviously Aston Martin have had lots of podiums this season, so we could potentially have 4, maybe 5 teams if Alpine got in there as well, getting towards Red Bull by the end of the year, especially if Red Bull are looking ahead to 2024, which I expect them to be doing. And maybe then, if wins are being taken from Red Bull come the end of the season, they'll be thinking maybe next season we need 2 stronger drivers to get us across the line in the constructors' battle. And then they might think, well, Daniel Ricciardo's available. But they might also think Lando Norris could be tempted. Or, I don't know, Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz. Who knows?
It's all a question of who wants to be Max Verstappen's teammate, and I don't imagine there'll be too many drivers.
I think that there's a few that would fancy their chances. And I think one person is going to be Daniel Ricciardo, because I think he's proven from their time together as teammates that he can compete with Verstappen. Now, whether can you argue that Ricciardo's at the same level he was in 2017, 2018? Probably not. But he might be. We said that about Fernando Alonso, and he's apparently back to his best this season, I'm told. So, it is possible for Ricciardo to get back to his best, and I think he'll fancy the job against Verstappen. The other people I'm thinking of, Leclerc, I think would fancy it. I think Hamilton would, but obviously they're not going to get the Red Bull seat. So yeah, you're right. There's a very limited number of people that will go to Red Bull and fancy their chances.
Plus, are any of those a significant upgrade on Checo Perez?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, isn't it? Ultimately, will Lando Norris be better than Checo Perez in a Red Bull? I think there's an argument for yes, he would, but is he ready for that yet? I think there's possibly a step in between ultimate championship potential and McLaren for Norris if he wants it. I think perhaps Ferrari might be a better place to look. Obviously, if Aston Martin are still fast in a couple of years, maybe that'll be a place. Because I don't know about you, but I just feel with McLaren it is just going to be a little flurry of good performances before they drop off again.
I don't know, it's hard to tell.
It is.
The pace they had in Silverstone was unreal, so it definitely made everybody sit up and go.
And it was in Austria, to be fair, with Norris.
Austria's always been a good track for McLaren, though. In fairness,
yeah,
I remember,
even in their Honda days, didn't Button qualify third or something in the wet?
Yeah, but Hulkenberg was second that day, so I think there was
Well,
there was maybe something
to be fair,
there.
Hulkenberg was second example. At where was it? Canada, was it? He was second.
Yeah. Again, what happened there?
Yeah.
So there you go. But it's an interesting one. I wish Ricciardo all the best, but I
think it'll be good to have him. You know, ultimately, De Vries, I've not noticed him in the sport, and I don't think that's his fault. But I've not seen many interviews with him. I've not seen much on track with him. You can guarantee that's not going to be the case with Daniel Ricciardo. He is going to be the centre of attention, certainly for the next few Grand Prix. And I think there's going to be lots of action of him on the track. And it might be that he's at the back every race. A bit like Giancarlo Fisichella when he was brought in for Massa in 2009, and he just stuck it on pole with Force India, and then was qualifying 20th every race for Ferrari. It doesn't always work out, but I think we both wish him the best. Obviously, he's one of my favourite drivers, but now that the Hulk's Toby, my allegiances are firmly with him, so
good luck with that one.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm hoping that we get some more points by the end of the season, but he'll keep sticking at P7 on the grid, but then there's just no race pace in that Haas, so yeah, it is what it is. But anyway, hopefully at home you've enjoyed listening to mainly the Ashes talk, a little bit of F1 talk at the end there, and I think it's good for us to remind everybody we're not just an Ashes podcast, because once the Ashes go, Toby, I don't want people in the comments going, where's our Ashes content, where's the cricket content? I think that's important. But yeah, it's going to be good anyway. We've got a couple of weeks to sort of stew over the fourth Ashes test match, look forward to it. And by that point, Toby, we'll be very, very close to our Joe and Toby Talk meetup at the Kiefer Sutherland concert. So it's all going to be exciting times. In fact, will the fourth test match be finished by the time we're there?
It's Wednesday. Hang on. So it finishes on Sunday.
There you go.
Sunday the 23rd. So yes, the 25th.
We could even have an in-person podcast going for that, Toby.
Well, if you provide tea and biscuits, then I could be tempted.
Well, that'll all be done in the background, behind the scenes, but I'm sure we'll squeeze perhaps a podcast in between that on a different topic, just talking about something else. Maybe we'll do a halfway review of the F1 season and just talking about Verstappen's victories.
I know you'd love that.
I'd love that. You know that I'm a big fan of Max Verstappen, so
yeah.
But anyway, if you did enjoy, leave a like down below. Obviously, subscribe for plenty more podcast content and more talks about the Ashes and F1 and all of that good stuff. We'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.